Welcome to Startup Showdown. I'm Jasmine Hoffman, the head of experience at TechUnited, and I will be your host for today's extremely special edition of this startup series that we've created at TechUnited with our partners at Tech Council Ventures. Startup Showdown is a pitch show allowing 3 startups in a particular industry to pitch 3 investors or experts in that same industry to gather feedback, insights, and hopefully continue to building their brand. Today with me, we've got Mark Kolb, John Dahl, and Dr. Amy Lau, and we're going to be asking their feedback on the 3 companies that are pitching today: Predictive, Genomic Expressions, and Enroute. You're going to hear from each of these 3 companies shortly, and let me encourage you to use the stage chat to share comments, ask questions that I'll moderate, and then ask into the founders. And later on today, vote for your favorite pitch of the day, which we'll announce at the very end of today's episode. I want to quickly thank RWJ Barnabas, Tech Council Ventures, and OR's partners for sponsoring this very special episode of Startup Showdown focused on companies in health tech, genomics, and regenerative medicine. And I want to just again say thank you all for joining us at the very first ever TechUnited Better Wellness Innovation Summit, which is really kicking off TechUnited's health tech focused program with RWJ Barnabas and our many other partners that are interested in seeing how we can build not only a better future for all, but a healthier future as well. Before we get into the very first startup pitch of the day, I'd love to have our judges today quickly introduce themselves, and I'll start with John Dahl. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jasmine. I'm John Dahl, the Chief Financial and Administrative Officer here at RWJ Barnabas Health.
Great to have you. Dr. Lau, thanks for joining us today as well. How you doing?
Good. Amy Lau. I'm President of Brooks Life Sciences Services.
Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, and those of you that have seen this show before recognize him as a Startup Showdown veteran, but Mark Kolb, thanks for joining us here today. How's it going?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, Jasmine, as well. Mark Kolb, partner with the Tech Council Ventures, a New Jersey-based early stage venture capital fund.
Excellent. Thank you for being here today. Well, without further ado, we are going to start with the predictive pitch, which everyone will see here on screen in just a moment, and then we'll share some questions and answers after that pitch is followed through.
Hi, I'm Sajun, CEO and co-founder of Predictive. After receiving PhD in biomedical sciences, I went to NIH to do the CRISPR-Cas9 genetic engineering research for 5 years. For the recent 4 years, I've been teaching genomics at Johns Hopkins University. Predictive is the most advanced DNA-based digital twin that is basically a digital copy of yourself to predict and prevent diseases and adverse drug reactions. 55 million people die every year from a serious disease. However, according to NIH, over 10% of those people could have been survived because of those diseases were preventable.
So this is why we built a solution that is basically a minority report for health. If you remember that movie, you had Tom Cruise using the solution to predict crimes so he could prevent them. We're providing physicians a solution that enables them to predict diseases, to prevent them before the symptoms appear. And to do that, we sequence 20,000 genes, which enables us to assess the level of risk on 16,000 diseases, to simulate your body reaction to 300 plus drugs. And we made a solution that is targeting all healthcare professionals, not only genomics experts. So it's easy to use, it's searchable in real time, so not just one-time PDF, and evolves over time with the research. Compared to other solutions on the market, such as 23andMe, which is a B2C solution, or Invitae, which is a B2B solution for healthcare professionals, we do 1,000 times more, we cover 1,000 times more diseases. And the reason why is that existing solutions have to manually identify all the gene variants every time they want to add a disease. We had a completely different approach. We decided to look at 100% of diseases known to have genetic components, to look at 100% of your gene variants. And because we automated that whole process with our genomics pipeline, we've been able to make it at a very affordable price, which is $790, including extraction, sequencing, and your first consultation to set up the preventive plan. We target many healthcare professionals, so hospitals, physicians, nurses, that will recommend or prescribe it to their patients. and that will also do the first consultation to set up the preventive plan at the end of the process. We have an amazing team with Sajun and Sijun, actual twin brothers, both teaching genomics at Johns Hopkins University. Myself, a serial entrepreneur with 2 successful exits and a former partner at KPMG. Alexander Braceford, full stack software engineer and seasoned CTO. Mailani Aduru, who's our chief medical officer and MD physician and Johns Hopkins trained bioinformatician, and 2 amazing advisors that help us on the medical AI side and on the healthcare side. Today, we just launched this month, but we already have amazing traction. We signed this month our first clients, which are more than 200 hospitals, more than 300 physicians who will start using our solution in March. Tomorrow, we have also over 70,000 healthcare professionals in our sales pipeline. We're working on to integrate more health and medical data, but also want to provide on a subscription basis personalized nutrition and fitness recommendations on people based on their DNA. We're also thrilled to be at Meet the Drapers season 4 and to go into the semifinals with 9 million viewers. Today, we are raising $1 million on a $5 million max cap safe. The objective for us is to deploy the product in the US and Asia, improve the UI UX, and grow our customer base. Thank you.
Thanks, Sejong, for that pitch. We are very excited to get to the Q&A portion. I already have a couple questions rolling in from the audience, but I'm going to start, Mark, with your feedback.
Well, let me start with 1 or 2 quick questions.
Sure.
You said it's mostly, at least initially, B2B. So who's really the target market?
Our first target is the telemedicine companies. The second target is the hospitals and private clinics, like concierge medicine, or the annual checkup.
And then what's the real value proposition for example, for the hospitals? What?
We help them to avoid the side effects. Because gene to drug interaction checking, normally we provide the drug to drug interaction, not the gene to drug. So since we analyze entire genes, we could do that for the 750 drugs. So, and the second value is the probably cost of the savings, which we are proposing. We just had a board meeting and approved for the pilot budget. So we're gonna run the small pilot clinical trials to prove how efficient this it is, and then how much cost saving we could bring.
And can you give me an idea of your business model? How do you charge? How do you make money?
We sell it $800, $790 for each digital twin, and then we are talking with telemedicine companies, and so we do it by bunch, giving them some referral fees. So instead of we recruit 1 by 1 person, we just like to do the B2B. Yeah.
Okay. So and it seems like such an important space and an important offering you're bringing forward. Can you give me an idea of who are the competitors in this space, or are you really the first at this level?
Yes, we are first doing all the 20,000 genes analysis, which we automatized. However, for the genetic sequencing companies, microarray, 23andMe, Invitae, Helix, genetic sequencing companies, whole genome, Illumina, BGI Genomics, Macrogen, genetic analysis companies, Crest, Gene by Gene, Actex, telemedicine companies, they are more rather partners, Teladoc, ML, iClinic, electronic health medical companies, Epic, Cerner, eClinicalWorks, they are more like the partners. Medical data analytics companies like AI, IBM Watson Health, Catalyst, and Apixio, or something like that. Yeah.
Terrific. So first of all, very impressive, real impressive what you're doing, and obviously the space you're in, I think is so important as far as I'm concerned. I think it sounds like you're pretty early out of the box now, and just getting some traction. But I certainly want to learn more. Well, why don't we pass this over, Jasmine, to John and Amy to ask some questions?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Jasmine, you're on mute.
Amy, would you like to go first?
Sure, yeah. Jasmine is not on mute, but we cannot hear you. Sajong, couple questions. John asked a lot of good questions already. I'm wondering, what makes your product, your services unique? What's your differentiation? How come you do it? And if you're the early one, the only one, what about others? What's so special about your analysis? And second question is more on your go-to-market plan. How do you plan to commercialize or market to those companies, the target markets that you want to sell to?
Yeah, let me address the special, what's special for us first. We are special analyzing entire 20,000 genes, unlike other companies doing, for example, 23andMe analyze maybe 100 conditions around that. In Invitae, maybe 200 to 400 different conditions. We did the same way too in the beginning. However, after doing that, we analyzed in order to use for the preventive purpose. We realized we have to analyze entire thing. So we had to start over. So it's a completely different mechanism of analyzing DNA. By the way, the course I teach at Johns Hopkins is the Tools for Genome Analysis course. So we used about 15 different tools, and then we actually wrote 5 tools in order to do that. So we use completely different approach. That's what our specialty is. And the second question for the go-to-market strategy, we are asking our telemedicine partners to build personalized preventive screening and a consultation plan. So telemedicine company problem is that once people get feel okay, they don't, it's basically turning out, they don't come to the telemedicine anymore. But as we analyze personalized genomic analysis for the next 20 years, recommending the proper test for based on their genomics. So that's why they can have a loyal customers. That's our biggest model, and telemedicine companies are actually very interested in doing that. And we actually did sign with a couple of telemedicine companies already within 2 months.
Fantastic. Can you all hear me now again?
Yes, we can.
All right. It's not an episode without a couple little AV delays, right? It's not technology without that, but I'm going to turn it right over to John for his comments.
Sure. So first of all, Sajong, congratulations on taking your expertise and trying to transform it into a product that'll help health outcomes. Certainly, it's a worthwhile endeavor and one that we support. I think the 2 questions I have are really focused on a theme of detractors from what you're trying to do, and I would see 2 groups. First, people who are sensitive about their genetic data being captured, stored, and perhaps used for a purpose other than that which you intend. And then the second thing is the payment model in healthcare really not working if you don't involve insurers, and how they come along with a therapy that has a long impact on the cost curve as you suggested, but immediately has a cost to them if it were covered, and that's sort of a missing ingredient. And I'm just curious if you've thought about how you might address those 2 groups of detractors.
Yes, excellent points. So first thing, genetic data sensitivity. For our customers own the data and we don't sell the data. But they could use their data for when they see each whoever healthcare professionals they see. So that way, the data, we are keeping with the GINA, and as also we are keeping with the data security. And secondly, about the payment model insurance. In our app, we are matching 7,000 diseases for the ICD-10 code. So when physicians find out certain genetics, the ICD code is available for the billable billing purposes. And secondly, we are about to start. We are discussing the clinical study. So one of the objective is the cost-benefit analysis. In addition to risk to benefit, but cost benefit analysis. in addition to the quality as well. So that will enable us to persuade the insurance people. By the way, also we are talking with the National Insurance Agency in early discussions in the UAE as well.
Any follow-up comments from our judges here before I pipe in some questions from the audience? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, go to the audience.
So I think we have a couple questions about your fundraising. I know you had mentioned, I think, $1 million raise, right? So Chris from Oars Partners is understanding if you will need to raise any additional rounds beyond that $1 million. And if so, are there milestones and a timeline you envision to get there?
Yeah, we raised already. We are oversubscribed with the 1.15 million because we raised from the Republic 800K. We closed that round a couple of days ago, and then we got the Tim Draper's, Draper Associates investment. We already got his investment, and also we are backed by the Plug and Play Ventures, and so we already oversubscribed. However, in our initial plan, we did not have the clinical trial plan. So that's why we are raising some more money in order to execute the clinical trials, one in the prestigious institutions and then another probably in overseas to have the numbers in order to validate. So that's why we are raising a little more money.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. And thanks, Chris, if you're still listening, for that excellent question. I've got just one more question for you before we move on to our next pitch of the day. Earlier today, some of the themes that have been brought up have talked about social determinants of health in the clinical realm. And clearly your product kind of looks at about 40% of what makes up wellness, right? 10% genetics and 30% could happen in a clinical realm, and your solution sort of combines those two. Is there an opportunity for what you're doing to be applied to the other 60%? Is there some way that the data you're collecting or the way in which you are supporting either treatments or therapies could potentially have an impact on that 60% of social determinants of health?
Yes, indeed, we competed at the FDA COVID challenge. There was the COVID modeling challenge. They gave the Veterans Affairs data and predicting the accuracy of the veterans who went through the COVID. So, which use the environmental factors. So, how many days you expect this person is most likely to get hospitalized, and what is the chance of ICU? What is the chance of oxygen usage? So we were 14th out of 35 entities, including. So these are big companies like UCSF or the Google, Accenture. These major companies competed. So our AI engine is very proven to be one of the very good. So for the 60%, yes, we already have the AI engine. We didn't incorporate yet, but that's the direction we are heading to.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to bring you back on at the very end of the episode for our audience vote and some closing remarks. And next up, we are going to share the Genomic Expression pitch and get into that Q&A portion as well. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
We are going to see more advances in healthcare the next 10 years than we've seen in the last 100. AI and RNA is going to revolutionize how we aggregate and deliver data to the benefit of the patient. Because it's simple. By analyzing RNAs, we can detect disease, monitor health, and design the next generation cures, as we have seen with the new mRNA vaccines. In fact, I'm going to show you here that we can cure cancer now by sequencing tumor tissue and individualized treatment based on the data with the existing drugs as the toolbox. My name is Gitte Petersen, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Genomic Expression. I started the company with my younger brother, Morten, when our parents got diagnosed with cancer. And then I brought in Jesper Zeuthen, who's a pioneer in immune oncology, the only way we can cure cancer, Bill Southworth to build the back-end informatics, and Charles Whitlick so we could get CLIA certified. Because standard of care only prolongs life for 1 out of 4 cancer patients. And that's why we are spending $100 billion on drugs, and 8 million patients die every year. In order to enable RNA sequencing of real clinical samples, we had to overcome 2 hurdles. RNA is destroyed in real clinical samples that are embedded in paraffin. Number 2, RNA sequencing generates 3 gigabytes of data, and we had to translate that into clinical action. We have overcome both hurdles. In fact, we have created an assay that uniquely identifies and quantifies 20,000 RNAs in one assay. And that means that we can move into other clinical indications with an update to the back-end informatics, which makes this platform exponentially scalable. Our biggest moment was our first patient. Triple-negative breast cancer patients have only access to chemotherapy in a standard of care setting. And because of the poor prognosis, the guidelines encourage patients to enroll in clinical studies. There's 5,000 clinical studies in breast, and they all require a test. You only have one slice of tissue, and with that single slice, we can narrow it down to a handful of already approved drugs, all in clinical development, already approved in breast, and 30 clinical studies with a strong focus on immune oncology. And that means that it's a major paradigm shift. We talked about personalized medicine for 4 decades, and it's one marker, one tissue type, and one drug here, the poster child Herceptin, that works in 50% of the early stage patients and only 20% in the late stage setting. And I keep asking, what about the other 50 to 80%? We can only change these numbers if we truly individualize medicine, so it becomes one patient, multiple markers, and many treatment options, and then monitor for response and relapse in a liquid biopsy sample. Our competitors are doing DNA sequencing, which can only prolong life in 60% of the patients, and they cannot predict response to immune therapy, and 50% of the new drugs in development are immune therapies. We validated this in 3 different cancer types, and we're moving into multiple liquid biopsy sample types, for instance, saliva together with Yale, and that provides an opportunity also to monitor for health. We're raising $20 million Series A and a bridge to move this technology into a $20 billion diagnostic market, of which women's cancer represent $3 billion, and the inferior DNA panels is an existing $4 billion market. We already got clear, we're revenue generating, and there's a payer code for this that reimburses us with $3,000 per test. Our margins is 19%, and we already have a number, Medicare, Medicaid, and a couple of private payers. We aggregate data under CLIA, and then we plan to file for breakthrough designation under the FDA, which will accelerate payer coverage. Our customers are pharma that wants to develop next generation cures, hospitals that want to enroll patients into clinical studies and provide better care, and telehealth companies that want to develop distributed healthcare delivery and monitoring for health. We are actually saving lives now. This is a metastatic thyroid cancer patient with absolutely 0 treatment options. We were able to identify an overexpressed RET, and she was able to identify and enroll in a clinical study with a very effective drug against this marker. And she is now in remission for 2 years. We won a lot of awards. We have fantastic clinical partners, and we were featured in Forbes, and then we attracted pioneers in vaccine development, diagnostics, and biobanking as investors and board members. Thank you very much. Please feel free to contact me here using these coordinates and visit us north of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. It was truly incredible. We're excited to hear our judges' feedback. And I'm going to get things started first with John. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I wasn't ready, and I apologize, Jasmine. You warned me, so
I'm
congratulations.
going to go to Mark. Mark, cue it up for us.
Yeah, well, let me start with a few quick questions. And first of all, Gita, that very impressive what you've done today. Very fabulous to hear this. I think, did I see you were based in the Boston area?
Yes, we have a clear lab north of Boston at the North Shore Innoventures. We're part of the incubator here. We do have a very important, our first collaborator was Rutgers in New Jersey, and I'm actually going to be there tomorrow meeting with them. So we have some ideas, I have some ideas about how we can accelerate implementation.
Okay, so on the technology side, probably Amy's much better at this, but is this really a question of sort of a DNA versus an RNA approach to things? Is that one of the takeaways today?
You know what, we never thought about it that way. We always thought RNA was really what the cell was doing, and DNA was what the cell could do. But if you measure what the cell is actually doing, you can detect, as I mentioned, disease. We can see COVID infections, and we can see the changes that cancer does and how we can interact with that. And that's the back-end informatics that we have created. Yeah. I think DNA is simply not as informative as RNA is.
What sort of IP do you have to protect this?
So we commissioned with Wilson Sonnini, and we just filed some additional patents. We have patents pending on the chemistry, the whole platform, and some of the outcomes that we have predicted. So we produced a poster for the New York Academy of Sciences Frontier in Immuno-Oncology, and the title was How to Use This Platform to Design Cancer mRNA Vaccines. And I think the cat is out of the bag. We're not going to cure cancer with just one drug. And being able to do this in a combinatorial way at this scale was really what we demonstrated.
Okay, and what's the current revenue of the business?
We are doing around 50 to 100K a month and scaling that. We are raising, as I mentioned, a Series A. We want to move into the payer system, and we need operational capital to successfully do that.
Okay, how much money have you raised to date?
We have 6.5 million in grants and 1.5 million in convertible notes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a lot of non-dilutive.
It is.
Good for you.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a pretty good picture. Terrific what you're doing up there. I certainly, outside of here, would love to learn more.
Yeah.
Jeff, why don't we move on to John and Amy?
Okay. All right, sounds good. I'm going to go to Amy because we're getting into the RNA, DNA, lots going on here on the technical side. I know with your GeneWiz background, you've got probably a lot to say here. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this, right? The previous one, Sajong and now Gita, yeah, all are fascinating and really working towards this personalized medicine and using genomics to bring benefits to the patients, to payers, and all that. Really exciting. I didn't see much about the technology side. So if I can hear more about how proprietary. I think John asked about the IP part, but if you can add a little bit more color to what's the back end of the technology that supports this uniqueness. Yeah.
so it's a platform, right? So I sometimes say it's like a cell phone. You have multiple components that needs to work seamlessly together in order to create a solution. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is that there's chemistries that enable sequencing in paraffin, which most companies have just given up and tell you can't be done. We've shown that it works. There's pipeline in terms of how we analyze the data, AI, and that's proprietary too. And then there's a proprietary database that allows us to make clinical decisions. So there's quite a lot that happens in the background. It looks like a nice little cloud, but there's quite a lot. We validated everything in a very structured manner. We can, because our aim is really to enable the approval also of a kit and the software to expand internationally, where the CLIA model doesn't exist outside the US. So we thought through that in how we built everything. Everything is super documented, reproducible, and solid.
Yeah, so you don't need to rely on any other devices, sequencers or analyzers. So your platform is
we do use Illumina's next-gen sequencers.
I see.
So MiSeq, NextSeq.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is more or less like to generate the library that can be ready.
The chemistry to generate the libraries and how to do that effectively in these challenging samples is proprietary and kitable. And then everything that happens with the data, the 3 GB of data, the proprietary pipeline and ways to enable a comparison of data across chemistries and pipelines, and then the database in the background. Yeah.
I can go on for hours with the technical questions. Maybe just one last one. So
yes.
your company, how long have you been around?
So we really got into the lab in 2012 with the first grant. And we, at that point of time, we had an idea. And we knew RNA was where we wanted to focus. So that was what we did.
Yeah, so that database that would enable you to take the readout and tell what it is, right? What that was accumulated in the years since you started the company, or?
Yeah, and through a very structured effort, we have trained and hired. First, we created a curation platform that was web-based, and then we trained and hired curators. So the database is really based on clinical studies that are published, right? So but the way there was we looked hard to see if there was anything out there of that sort. There is now for DNA mutations in oncology. You can find those QCI from QIAGEN and others, but it doesn't exist on RNA basis.
Great, fascinating.
I know we could definitely go on about this forever, and I have a million questions of my own that I'm probably going to keep to myself for the sake of time, but I'm going to turn it over to John for his thoughts.
Thanks, Jasmine. And Jite, congratulations on your success. I think it's wonderful how you took a personal experience and used it as the inspiration to sort of build on this idea. I just really have one question, and it's about commercialization opportunities. And as you think about partnerships with a large laboratory or a potential another avenue, is that something you've begun exploring, or is it too early?
No, we want to explore that. So as I said before, the CLIA model doesn't exist outside the US, and there's other hurdles, GPDR in Europe. We can't get our European collaborators to send us samples. So we ended up working on implementation at the Danish Rigshospitalet, which is the biggest hospital. And in order to do that, we have to kit it. We had to enable GDPR, HIPAA compliant access to our toolbox. And we partner with Illumina to do that through their connective analytics platform that also allows us to monetize that with our partners. So we are very flexible on the different models. I am actually more interested in working with other large hospital systems and labs to get this implemented than sitting on it in my own little clear lab. There's certain advantages, one being having faster payer coverage. As anybody worked in healthcare knows, it's lengthy and sometimes painful experience get into the networks, and that can accelerate it. So I'm really interested in accelerating access to this technology for the patients. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, it's a good thing that we have someone from RWJ Barnabas on the line. That's very interesting. And there's hundreds of other people in healthcare that are listening right now. So hopefully we'll be able to help with that. And in the interest of accelerating startups, I want to remind everyone to stay tuned, because at 12:30 we are announcing our $50,000 Better Wellness Challenge, where we're going to be giving away prizes to companies that are focusing on these efforts. So stay tuned for that. We're going to bring you back on for the closing remarks, and we're going to do the Enroute pitch, and that'll be our last pitch for today. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Enroute. My name is Mike Kosnick, and I am the CEO and co-founder of the company. If you walk into most hospitals today, it won't take you long to recognize that the way operations are run is inefficient. Staff members are using pagers to coordinate mission-critical actions. Supply outages are being communicated using whiteboards, and important life-saving assets are only located when staff do manual searches going room to room. Through hundreds of conversations and our collective experiences in healthcare, we have learned that the fundamental systems used to manage supplies, assets, and people in hospitals are inadequate. And while other industries have cutting-edge software to manage these items, traditional operations and logistics software has not been customized to the extent necessary to be effective in hospitals. The two problems at the core of these issues is that data is not shared effectively between products and systems in hospitals, and the pertinent data is oftentimes not accessible in a proper and actionable manner to the staff making everyday decisions. With an inevitable wave of digital innovation on the horizon over the next decade, hospitals need a solution to help turn disparate data into user-centric, mission-critical insights. At Enroute, we are addressing this need by building the new operating system for the modern-day hospital. By combining information using our API engine, we will grow and build a unique and robust data set. We will then be able to develop and train our proprietary algorithms and models to provide process automation and insights for staff that ultimately create more efficient, safer, and cost-effective operations. The key to optimizing hospital operations is to understand the fundamentals of how people and things move through the system. That is why we have started by reimagining intra-hospital patient transport. This is a universal process that is the backbone of hospital operations and a significant yet overlooked source of waste and inefficiency. Our solution brings transportation operations into a new age. We give staff the ability to conduct transports using tools that bring a layer of advanced analytics and automation to the process. We are also building in a more engaging user experience for staff and bringing new levels of geospatial awareness to transportation. In the second largest hospital in Israel, we have built and deployed our transport product during the height of the pandemic, and we have already made a sizable impact in their operations. In the future, we're planning to use our data set and models to fully automate the intra-hospital patient transport process, which no other company is doing today. As I'm sure you're all aware of, ROI is a huge point of emphasis for hospitals. We will be able to provide the most value for our customers by optimizing efficiency and prioritizing safety. Ultimately, improvements across these two areas will directly lead to top and bottom line impacts for our customers. Most important to note, however, is that patient transport is just the beginning of our end-to-end advanced operating system. There is a real need and opportunity for us to drive operations and logistics efficiency across the value chain for hospitals coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our company will grow strategically by transforming operational areas adjacent to patient transport with our customers. Our executive founding team has the perfect mix of digital strategy, operations, and deep tech experience necessary in the hospital space to drive Enroute forward. We are confident that over the next few decades, Enroute can make a real impact in hospitals in the future. Thank you everyone for your time, and now I am happy to take any questions that any of you might have. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that fabulous pitch, Mike. I'm going to get started right away with Mark's feedback and questions.
Terrific. Mike, wonderful to meet you, and a very nice presentation. Give me a quick stage of the business. Is the product done? Do you have revenue? You have a team built out?
Yeah, sure. So we're pre-revenue. Our product, patient transport product, is built and currently live and operational in the second largest hospital in Israel. We've had great results there. We've been able to decrease transport times on average by 30%. We're on track to save them $5 million in annualized wasted costs. And we have 2 LOIs with US-based hospitals that we're looking to deploy at either later this summer or early in the fall.
So tell me about that. Your value proposition is reducing cost. It sounds like. How do you demonstrate that you've reduced $5 million in cost by improving transport?
Yeah, so it's a combination of reducing costs for hospitals, but also increasing patient throughput and getting more patients through the system more efficiently. So those are metrics that we're monitoring with this hospital in Israel, and we're reporting on it and producing a case study to document that impact.
But is the cost reduction based on labor costs, reduce labor costs?
So it's a combination of reduced labor costs via schedule optimization. At this hospital in Israel, for instance, we found that 80% of the transports were being done by 20% of the staff members. So we're going to be able to help them reduce FTEs. We're also monitoring patient flow and how fast we can get patients through the system and discharge faster. And then also we're monitoring how many appointments and surgeries we can get started on time and help to increase the volume of those as well.
Wow. Okay. Terrific. And what about IP on this? Is this something patents and so on?
So we're building a robust data set with this hospital in Israel. It's the second largest hospital in Israel. They're very technologically innovative. And so by assembling that data set with them and then hospitals in the US as well, we feel like we'll have a unique differentiated advantage through that.
Okay. Terrific. Wonderful. Jasmine, I'll hand off, but very nice. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Good. I'm going to go to Amy for her feedback.
Yeah, another fascinating case, right? So, Mike, have you already piloted your app? And another question that's outside of my realm is, what's the major cost for you, for a company like yours? What do you use? What do you need the funding for? And and how do you plan to commercialize this?
Yes. So I'll take those in order. We are currently piloting at that hospital in Israel. So we're doing over 1,000 patient transports a day on our platform, and we've been able to reduce that transport time by around 30% on average. In terms of costs, there is an integration cost that comes with getting into these hospitals. It's something that we're actively working towards in the US and consulting people who have done it before. So we're thinking about going with some third parties to start, but also building out the capabilities internally. But then for the funds that we're looking to raise now, we would use those to build out our R&D, to build out our sales team and increase our pipeline, and then help with the deployments at these sites. And then finally, with commercialization, we're a SaaS-based product. So we're planning on using a land and expand strategy. We're currently talking with a number of different systems that have between 10 to 50 hospitals in their systems. And they've made it clear that if we can be successful at one of these hospitals, that they'll give us the opportunity to expand into the other hospitals in the system.
So what will be your model of revenue? How do you get revenue?
Yeah, so if we do an annual contract, somewhere between 200K to $500,000, but that's pending some of the tests that we're going to be doing in the US. And then, yeah, that's recurring on an annual basis.
Thanks.
Thank you. And John, your questions and feedback.
Sure, Mike. So first of all, I do think you're on to something. As it relates to data around logistics, things that can delay care or create a patient's time in the hospital be longer than it needs to be. Those are things that are very important to any hospital operator, and there are issues that many have struggled with for decades. So there is a business case for what you're trying to do. I think my questions are going to be focused on the challenge that you have in front of you in dealing with an established industry. When you think about integration with the large EMR providers who are building technology that's competitive, and there's real barriers to integration there, I guess I'd ask, how do you think about overcoming them?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question, John. And it's something that's on our minds a lot. When we think about the competition, EMRs obviously are the established players. They have a large foothold in the IT space when it comes to hospitals. But we really feel that, the pandemic has been a catalyst for us to, help open the door to new opportunities for us. We speak with a lot of potential customers that experience problems during it. We think that, legislation coming down the pipeline and rules that have been put in place are now going to start leveling the playing field. You have a lot of third-party integration companies that are coming in that are helping get startups like ours into these hospitals and integrated in a faster timeline. So, we think that provides a lot of opportunity for us from that perspective. And then when we look at newer startups in the space, we really feel that by focusing on patient transport, a process that everyone is familiar with, everyone for the most part knows that there are issues that inevitably pop up. And by automating that and creating a very user-friendly experience, we think that we can then establish a foothold and grow from there strategically. And then, I'm sorry, what was your last question that you had?
I only started with one at a time. You answered it. So the second one is just out of curiosity, as you've done the work for the facility in Israel, have you found any silver bullets or early wins? Like if there was something specific that you could point to?
Yeah, so we have a co-founder on the ground in Israel every day going into the hospital, and the impact that he tells us, we're making is very transparent. He says he has members of the transport staff and operations staff that are coming up to him asking if they can personally invest because, they see the value in the product, they enjoy using it, it's making their lives a lot easier. So even though that's not a route we're going to be going down, we really feel that, our end users showing that level of interest and excitement, shows that we're on the right track.
Well, good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your questions and feedback on all three of these companies. I've got one question from the audience, and then after that, we're gonna get into our closing remarks, so we end on time as always. But Mike, the question actually came from someone who must have looked at your website. which I pulled up myself, so I make sure I'm reading it verbatim. By reducing 1 minute per transportation, we can save 20 hours of patient waiting time per day. Can you share a little bit about what this sort of philosophy has done to create your business? A lot of stuff in startups is if you can do one step at a time, if you can make it one level, better and more efficient. Can you talk about, how this has kind of infused itself into your overall business model and how you've really leveraged this platform to go to market in an efficient way?
Yeah, so patient waiting time, as I'm sure everyone here is aware of, is a big problem in healthcare. It's something that when we first started working on this problem with this hospital in Israel, patient anxiety and patient wait time was at the top of the list when it came to items they want to improve. HCAHPS scores are on the top of a lot of hospital executives' minds as well. So by focusing on the patient, focusing on providing a better experience for them, by reducing patient transport time, we feel is going to ultimately help us to really win over a lot of champions at these hospitals. And something I failed to mention was in Israel, actually, we're on track and currently saving them 100 hours of patient waiting time daily through our product. So by decreasing the transport time even more and helping to impact that, we feel that we'll only continue to provide a lot of value for patients and in turn the people that are purchasing our platform.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you answering that question, and thank you to the folks that have chimed in with questions throughout today's episode. So we are going to bring on our other two startups for our closing remarks, and while we do that, we'll have a brief holding screen and we'll get everyone set up for our final closing remarks. Thank you all for briefly holding while we tabulated the audience choice winner for today. I want to, before we announce the winner, just thank everyone for participating, not only in today's Startup Showdown episode, but in the overall TechUnited Better Wellness Innovation Summit. I want to thank RWJ, Tech Council Ventures, Brooks Sciences, Life Sciences, and our three startups here for joining us today at this incredible episode. And I want to take a moment to talk about how, this is not just something that happens. This isn't one of many. This is a very unique opportunity that we're able to do to bring together folks from all different types of industries, all different stakeholders, to really talk about what's important as we try to leverage technology to accelerate the future of healthcare and our overall wellness. So I want to thank each of you for taking time out of your days to join us today. It's really critical that we continue to collaborate and leverage technology to build a better future for all. So thank you again. A round of applause to each of you for joining us. So thank you very much. Yes, that's brilliant, brilliant. All right, well, next up, we are going to announce the $50,000 Better Wellness Challenge, so stay right here on stage. And congratulations to Genomic Expression, this episode's winner of the Audience Choice Award. Enroute, Predictive, thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you're doing. We are so happy to have you a part of the TechUnited community. And without further ado, we're going to send you off and have an incredible day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Great one. Bye-bye.